Look around. Many backyard fruit trees, they're barely producing a couple of sad apples or maybe a wormy peach. Why? Because the so-called experts want you to dump money on chemicals and gimmicks that don't work. What if I told you there's a better way? 7 proven secrets from my 30 years of orchard experience to transform your fruit trees into fruit machines without breaking the bank or poisoning your yard. From hacking your pruning to building a hidden ecosystem, these tricks will triple your harvest. Pruning. I don't necessarily mean pruning of your fruit tree, although yes, that can be very important. I mean your fruit tree needs to be in full sun. I like to use a simple rule. If the bottom of my tree, the bottom branches, hardly have any fruit like this one, good rule of thumb is that they're not getting enough light, so there needs to be some pruning above them. Maybe you've got a big shade tree above it. Well, that one should be pruned first. Your tree, in most cases, your fruit tree needs to have full sun, unless it's something like a pawpaw or a cocoa tree. They need sun. So cut that one, either cut it down or prune it heavily so that your fruit tree gets sun. For the fruit tree itself, yes, pruning can really give you more fruit. It's a simple mathematical formula. The more branches you have, the more number of fruit you'll have, but the same weight of fruit you'll have. So if you have half the number of branches in your fruit tree, but you have the same number of fruit, on average, your fruit will be twice the weight. Not the size necessarily, but the weight. So that's part of, you can get more fruit, or you could get more fruit of a size that is interesting. Maybe you got a bunch of little apples. That's not what you're aiming for. It's a lot of time to process and you get a lot of core. So pruning, the goal for pruning is really to get more marketable or more basket-worthy fruit. Could be in color, could be in quality, could be in size. That's really why you're pruning. Otherwise, why go through all the effort? Pruning is important, but do you have to prune? Stick around to the end. I'll show you an alternative and even a complement to pruning that is way better. Feeding the tree. Wow, nutrition. Is that important? Think of your own life. Is nutrition important to you? Then it's certainly important to the fruit tree. If you haven't messed with your soil by poisoning the life in your soil, like I have, this orchard hasn't been sprayed with any toxins since before I bought it, which is over 30 years ago. This tree, since I planted this orchard 15 years ago, has never been fed. No nutrition, no feeding. The soil is meant to feed the tree. Hey, you say, but how can I get more fruit? You have to ask yourself, there comes a point where you say, do I want more fruit? In some cases, yes. But in some cases, no. I don't want this tree producing more fruit. And if I find the tree is not healthy enough, is lacking something, has insects or has disease, then that is an indicator. It's a clue to me that it needs something. Rarely, very rarely is that something for nutrition NPK, which is what most people say, oh yeah, you just give it NPK. No, NPK is not necessarily friendly to your soil life, which is what should naturally feed your tree. Is there somebody putting NPK in the forest or in the wildlands? No. So your trees have grown basically they've not been used to being fed NPK. Maybe a few cultivars in research stations, they kind of got used to it, but on average, no, they don't need it to start. If they show a lack, it's not usually NPK, it's usually micronutrients, things like molybdenum, boron, cobalt, zinc, magnesium, things that are often in parts per million in your soil. Wow, how do I feed parts per million? My best recipe for that is, one, you can either give them liquid seaweed, which is the distillation basically of what's in the ocean, and there's lots of micronutrients in the ocean, which is good, or as a one-time every few years, you can give your tree, not the tree itself, but the soil around it, give it some compost and basalt rock dust. I love that combination because it's such a long-term feeding. I did it over 30 years ago, and I know by the trees that some of them not bothered at all, but others are starting to tell me that, you know what, it's time again. They're starting to lack certain micronutrients. So if that's the case, go get yourself some good compost, smell it. If you can smell it, it's good. And basalt rock dust, because it's, for one rock dust type, it has the most range of micronutrients. And usually one application every 3 to 5 years is more than enough. If you just have a few fruit trees, it's not expensive and it will do a world of difference to your tree. The next one is that nature never plants monocultures, one species alone. Nature always plants diversity. What happens if you plant a diversity? That's what we did. Just try and look what's nature doing and copy it. It's a time-proven system that works. So we plant every one of the fruit trees near another tree, not a fruit tree. In this case, we use honey locust, we use a bunch of nitrogen fixing. So these trees that are next to them are meant to fertilize, feed the fruit trees, so I don't have to. You say, well, I don't mind doing it. If you don't mind doing it, go ahead. Add some fertility. But you can plant in a way that really eliminates that need. So planting as an ecosystem, planting as combinations, we call it trios. So you have 2 fruit trees and a nitrogen fixing tree, trios. And it's so simple. I kind of wonder, why haven't we been doing this for, we have, just that's not what you see in a commercial system. Not that it doesn't make sense, because it makes a lot of sense, but you can plant. And that's just the trees. When you look below the trees, we put shrubs. Each fruit tree should have, in our case, should have 2 shrubs, berry-producing shrubs. Things like blackcurrant, redcurrant, hascap. And that's not all. For me, the trios is trios of trees, but also trios of plants in height. So the fruit tree should be the tallest. Below that, you get a fruiting shrub. And below that, you get perennials. Could be flowers. You like flowers? Put flowers. It could be herbs. Really, you can have a lot of herbs under one single fruit tree. Herbs work great. And in some cases, they're even more than just part of an ecosystem. They're really part of a guild, meaning a group of plants that work well together to repel insects, to give you better fruit, more fruit. So planting as an ecosystem just makes life so much simpler and gives you so much less work. Work at the beginning to plant it, but long term for the life of your fruit tree, a lot less work. Another trick to getting more fruit is using mulch. There's 2 types. There's mulch that you add material, and there's living mulch. I love living mulch. Here's a good example. This is thyme. And it's really time that you start using plants like this under your fruit trees. And the main goal for mulch is to keep the grass away from your trees. You say, well, look, orchards have grass. You know, the trees are, if your tree is fully mature, grass is not as bad. And yes, we do have grass in the aisles, but under the trees and around the trees, especially I would say for your first 5 years that you plant your tree, please keep the grass away. And another one I've seen, especially in suburbs, is if you have a tree and you have a string trimmer, the tendency is to want to cut the grass right around the tree. That's the biggest cause of tree death in the city, is string trimmer damage to the bark at the base of the tree, the worst place. So keep your string trimmer far from your tree, and your tree will live longer and give you more fruit by definition because it lives longer. But get some mulch. Put some plants. You could put rhubarb, you could put thyme, you could use hosta underneath the tree just to keep the grass away. So something that will grow. Billy Bonds use a lot of strawberries. You can have a mat of strawberries underneath your fruit tree. So all strategies and plants, whatever works in your area, that grow aggressively but that are non-grassy. Mulch is a great thing. Otherwise, adding mulch, and that's more work long-term because you have to keep refreshing it, but adding mulch, things like wood chips, great strategy in the beginning. Why not? Put it in, your tree will do better. You can add that. You can even, if you're in a rocky site and you have lots of rocks, mulch around the tree with rocks. The idea is keep the grass away and your tree will do much better. So mulch your tree is really a way to get more fruit long term. Water. How important is it to water? I always say water is your cheapest input compared to anything else you can add to your fruit trees. And honestly, water is inexpensive. What's the goal of watering? You don't want your plant, your fruit tree, to shut down, to stop growing or to stop photosynthesizing. Remember I said sun is energy, energy gives fruit. You don't want it to stop photosynthesizing because it's lacking water. Hey, how much water? Look, that's our soil. We're on a beach. We're growing in pure beach sand. So we do add water because even between rains, the soil will dry out and it will shut down our trees. So we add water. If you're in a clay soil, I bet you could water once a week during a drought, and that would be enough for the whole week. The general rule for watering is you want to water deep and less often. Well, how often depends on your soil. Like I say, maybe you're in clay, water so it waters deeply, but water once a week. I'm in a sand that if I water, I generally water once a day. Because if I go 3 days, the soil can completely dry out. You ever go to a beach, see how fast the water goes? So it depends on your site. Look, if you're not sure, a very simple rule. Take a shovel after you've watered what you think is good and put the whole shovel depth, make a little wedge, pull that wedge out and check. You might be surprised. I thought I watered enough, but your soil is wet this deep. So water longer. Don't water more often, water longer. Because you want to, ideally, you'd like to make sure your top 12 inches of soil has had a real good drink. So check, don't be afraid. You can put that divot of soil back in the same place. Use a shovel, it's your friend, to find out how much to water. What type of watering? This is great for an open area, grassy area, perfect, but not for your fruit trees. Try not to wet your leaves. If you're watering in a way that all the tree becomes wet, that's not ideal because it helps encourage or allow fungal spores to spread. If your tree isn't in top nutrition shape, it can be susceptible to certain diseases. Otherwise, what you want to do is water low. Ideally, just water the soil. And if you're watering in any way that will wet the trunk of your tree, try and avoid that. Move your watering spots further from the trunk. So drip irrigation is a great way to go. For a home use, I really like soaker hoses. They fit on garden fittings. They're tough. You could mow over it, not mow it, but mow over it. It's gonna resist years of use and continue to spread a lot of water on a space. Like I said, test it. Water and see if the amount of time you watered is enough for your situation. You'll get a lot of information by putting 2 or 3 times digging a little bit around your tree. Don't be afraid to give the tree what is really its cheapest input, which is water. Trapping insects. You want more fruit? When I say more, I mean more that you end up with enjoying on the table. You may get insects, and I still have trees that get some insects, and I use that as an indicator. Yes, I know it's time to add more rock dust and compost. I got it. But if I have an insect like this leaf roller, I don't care. The birds usually will take care of these insects without problem. The only ones I don't want to have are insects that affect the fruit. So if I look at the fruit and I see there's 2 insects that will burrow or can be in the fruit. The first one is codling moth, and we trap codling moth. You have a video on that. Very simple way to catch codling moth. It's adding about 2 inches of a mix, 50-50 molasses and water. That's it. Put that out in the tree, ideally right after flowering, and you're good to go. You may need to top it off with water because in the heat, the water evaporates, the molasses do not. And the second one, we usually set out around July 1st, is these traps that trap apple maggot flies. Those 2 are the 2 main insects that affect apple trees. Codling moth can affect the pear trees. So find out for the fruit you are growing what insect, and then look for a trap that you can trap the pests. Way better long-term for the health of your ecosystem, for the health of your fruit trees. Then be careful if you go to a garden center and you say, hey, I got insects. Usually they'll recommend some kind of insecticide. Don't fall for it because it's a treadmill. You poison the insect, you're probably poisoning their predators. And then you crash your ecosystem and you start on a treadmill. Oh, I got that insect. I got more of that insect. Trapping does the opposite. You trap the target insect in majority. Yes, it'll trap some others, but majority it's trapping the insect that wants the fruit, and you're not affecting the predators. I told you if you stuck around, I would give you an alternative to pruning. I learned this 15 years ago. Instead of pruning, training your branches, especially when your tree is young, because really trees respond the same like people. If you train up your tree while it's young, it won't change its way. It'll be trained for life. Training of fruit trees, for every fruit tree that I know except for pear tree, there's always an exception in every rule, simply involves taking your branches and making them so that they are below horizontal. You will get so much more fruit. Your tree will produce sooner, could be a year, in some cases 2 years earlier, than if you pruned your fruit tree to shape it. Please don't prune to shape, train to shape. We got other videos on it, but training is so important. And we make our own little training wires with 2 hooks, and it simply means you take your branch, put it below horizontal, find a hook place, and you set it. And it's really set it and forget it. I'll come back during the winter when I'm pruning, because I do prune, and I will see, oh, this branch is done, and I'll take it off, and if I see the branch doesn't spring back, if it stays in position, then I take it off. If it wants to go back above horizontal, I'll leave it on for another time. And that's all there is to it. You take your branches and you train them. Take your branch, train it. First time I learned this, I tried it, I learned it, I tried it, and I applied it so that when we were harvesting, I looked at one of my old apple trees and I thought, here's a good one to compare. We harvested one branch of the tree and it gave us a bushel of apples. One branch, which is 40 pounds of apples. And then we harvested the rest of the tree. That's like another 12 branches. And we got 3/4 of a bushel. And I was asking my apprentices at the time, I said, what's the difference? How come that branch gave us a bushel and the whole tree gave us less than a bushel? Where it is, and the only difference really was that one branch was the only one that was below horizontal, while all the other ones were like this. And they produced so much less, because this is the signal to a tree that put all your effort into producing more fruit, not more branches, because each branch is equivalent to several fruit. If it's growing branches that you then prune off, you're wasting the precious photosynthesis going into the tree. Train instead of pruning. It'll make a world of difference to your tree, and long term, that branch will need minimal and probably no pruning. If you made it this far, I got a bonus tip. Look at your branch. If you say not much fruit, it may be due to lack of pollination. If you suspect maybe my tree didn't get pollinated, check out this next video. It'll explain why.